Random Thoughts. In this video, I'm introducing a new book that I've started reading, and the book is titled First Steps in East Africa, or An Exploration of Harar by one Captain Sir Richard F. Burton. This is a book that was published in 1856. Now, this is a book that is about the actions of Sir Richard Burton. Now, Sir Richard Burton was born in 1821 and he died in 1890. And in this book, he tells us specifically about his expedition to Harar in Somalia, and generally Somalia, or the land of the Somali people. And seems like this is going to be a very interesting read. And it tells us how he got to start that mission and how things went. I've just gotten a summary of it. Seems like he camouflaged himself basically to go to that land because there was so much need for him to go there. He was sent there by the East India Company. This was a company, a British company that, of course, if you know history, this is the company that went to India and occupied India and basically ruled India. It was a private entity, of course, but it even had an army and it colonized India for a while before the British government took over. It was something similar to the Imperial British East Africa Company that came to East Africa and occupied Kenya for a few years before the government of Britain took over. It's the same thing. But now, this company in India at some point had so much interest, seems like, to come and explore the land of the Somali and to control it. And the preface of this book provides the reasons why the East India Company needed to control that land, specifically because it was through the Red Sea that a lot of commerce happened, especially between Britain and, of course, India. So there was need to control that stretch, and part of that maybe needed to control the land next to the sea. I'm going to read the preface of the book so that we get at least a bigger picture of what he was up to. And it reads, I'm going to read several parts. After Richard Burton left Mecca, he returned up to the Red Sea to Egypt, and after a short rest to Bombay, the East India Company service had long wished to explore Somaliland in Abyssinia because Berberah, its chief port, is far better than Aden, as Harar, its capital, was the most difficult place, and no white man had ever succeeded in entering it, the whole country being then inhabited by a most dangerous race to deal with. He obtained leave to go there as a private traveler, the company agreeing to allow him his pay, but no government protection. He applied for 3 other Anglo-Indian officers, amongst them Lieutenant Speck, to tell off to different enjoyments on the coast. Speck was to go to Bunder Gurei to buy horses and camels. Herne was to go to Berberah on another errand, and Stroyan on a third errand was to meet him there, whilst Richard Burton was to do the dangerous part, plunge into the country and enter Harar as an Arab merchant. This was one of his most splendid and dangerous expeditions, and the least known, partly because his pilgrimage to Mecca was in every man's mouth, and partly because the excitement aroused by the Crimean War had to a large extent deadened the interest in all personal adventure. So seems like Burton had done other expeditions that during that time became more interesting than this one of him going to the land of the Somali. He had gone to Mecca, he had gone and participated in the Crimean War. So those ones were more interesting to the British people during that time. And this one was not that much interesting, at least it seems like, going by what is written here. Now, here is going to give us, there is also, in this preface, there is also a summary of why they needed to control specifically Berberah. And he says, or the person who wrote the preface says, the occupation of the port of Berberah has been advised for many reasons. In the first place, Berberah is the true key of the Red Sea, the center of East Africa traffic, and the only safe place for shipping upon the western Eritrean shore from Suez to Gaddafi, backed by lands capable of cultivation and by hills covered with pine and other valuable trees, enjoying comparatively temperature climate with a regular although thin monsoon. This harbor has been coveted by many foreign conquerors. Circumstances have shown it as it were into our arms. If we refuse a chance, another rival nation will not be so blind. Secondly, we are bound to protect the lives of British subjects upon this coast. in 1825, the crew of the Mary Ann brig was treacherously murdered. So he talks about the reasons. Seems like he's saying that this was this Berberah port was interesting for several reasons. It was next to land that could be very productive. And he says that if they did not take the steps to grab it, somebody else was going to do it. So they had to move fast. And of course, he mentions about the attacks on British ships. Then he tells us about Harar and the stories they had had. He says, the following pages contain the writer's diary kept during his march to and from Harar. It must be borne in mind that the region traversed on this occasion was previously known only by the vague reports of native travelers. All the Abyssinian discoverers had traversed the Dankali and other northern tribes. The land of the Somal was still terra incognita. Nobody went there. Harar, moreover, had never been visited, and few are the cities of the world which in the present age, when men hurry about earth, have not opened their gates to European adventure. The ancient metropolis of once mighty race, the only permanent settlement in Eastern Africa, the reported seat of Muslim learning, a walled city of stone houses, possessing its independent chief, its peculiar population, its unknown language, its own coinage, the emporium of the coffee trade, the headquarters of slavery, the birthplace of the cat plant, and the great manufactory of cotton clothes, amply it appeared, reserved the trouble of exploration. That the writer was successful in his attempt, the following pages will prove. So it tells us why Harar seemed to be so attractive to the Europeans. Even though they had never been there, they had heard stories about this city. It was a great city. It seems like so many interesting things had been said about this city. And he says, because of all those interesting things, it was worth it to risk going there. And that's why Barton decided he was going to go there, and he was going to present himself as an Arab merchant. That's what he was going to do. And we are going to find out how that expedition went by reading through this book. The preface also gives us, of course, details like the conversations that went on between the Indian company. It was not Indian, actually, it was British company, but the name was East India Company. The conversations that went on between that company and the Royal Geographical Society of Great Britain, and also, of course, different other players, and how those conversations went on, so that this journey, of course, was planned. And the journey itself started in 1854. That's when Barton and these other fellas, including John Speck, started on this journey of going to the land of the Somali people. So I'm going to read this book, and I'm going to pick the most interesting parts of the book, of course, and create videos that I'll share with you. But of course, I've said in another video, when I do this, when I present these short clips about books, this is an invitation for you to go look for the book and read it yourself. Most of these old books, of course, are freely accessible. You don't need to buy them, and you are not like getting a pirated copy. No, you're actually getting an official copy that is allowed for you to read, even when you get it online on platform like archive.org. This is not, if you are like me, I don't like it reading books that I'm sure their source is not legit. I prefer reading a book that I know is an original book, or is accessible through channels that have been approved by the writer and the publisher. I prefer doing that. So yeah, these old books, you don't have to buy them. You're also not reading pirated copies. You are reading copies that have been made available officially for consumption. Old books, at some point, all books become free. So you can get these books on platforms like archive.org, and you can read them. I'm going to create a spreadsheet or some form of a database that I can then share with people who like reading these books, so that you can go there and get a link where you can get the book. Those are my random thoughts.